Hello guys and gals of the internet, Sword here. Thanks for dropping by and welcome to VEDIM 4.5. So if you all have seen the previous episode, or video, whatever you want to call it, of VEDIM, you know that I got distracted yesterday. That morning was my last final, and then afterwards I was busy stuffing my car with all of my worldly possessions that I had not already taken back home. And then I thought it was gonna go out, and it started raining, and blah blah blah. So yeah, so I didn't make a proper video. So today I thought I'd make two videos. I was filming yesterday, but it's for a video that you all are going to see tonight. So yeah, so this video here is just gonna be talking about a few things. So, with packing all that, you might assume I'm moving out and heading back home. Actually, what time is it? Yeah, I'm heading back home as soon as I get this video done, actually. So it takes about 2.5 to 3 hours to get from Athens back home. That's depending on Atlanta traffic, because I have to go through Atlanta, which is always a joy. But I've been getting really tired of listening to the radio or CDs the whole time. Especially radio, because it is, to say the least, repetitive. You all know what I'm talking about, and CDs are just limited by nature. So, I've recently, these past few trips that I've taken back and forth from home to Athens, I've been listening to podcasts. Now, I know I'm not alone. A lot of people have recently been getting into podcasts, and they've been making videos about podcasts they like. So, why not do it for VEDIM too? There's 3 podcasts in particular that I have really been enjoying, and I wanted to share them with you all. So, let's get started. Alright, so this first one is actually the very first podcast that I started regularly listening to, and that is Modern Love from the New York Times. I first heard about this because for journalism class we had to keep up with the news on a regular basis, and in one of the email updates I was getting from New York Times, they were talking about their new podcast, and I was intrigued by the name Modern Love because I'm a hopeless romantic. So I downloaded a couple of episodes and gave them a listen, and I absolutely love it. These stories they're just so well made. First off, they're not just a cut and dry someone reading a story. They add a lot of subtle elements to it that really add to the story, and the stories themselves are really diverse and interesting. The very first one I listened to was called Misconnections, and it was basically talking about on Craigslist this story about a woman and how she came to start dating this man, and just how all of that progressed. And it was really interesting, especially by the end, because it was this thing that I didn't know was happening with Craigslist dating. And there was another one called A Faithful Leap, and it wasn't about a romantic story. It was actually about a story between a daughter and her mother, and the story ends with a faithful leap. You have the suspense going on throughout the story. And like I said in the description, it sounds like straight out of a movie, honestly. But these are all real stories. And it is so interesting to hear, especially someone who doesn't have, most of these stories are around romantic relationships, and as someone who doesn't really have experience with that, it's really interesting to hear all of these different stories about different relationships and things that have happened. And like I said before, it's really well made. It's New York Times, so I wouldn't expect any less. So it's just a really good podcast. So this next one is a relatively new podcast. It's called Ladies Who Lunch, and it is hosted by 2 YouTubers, Ingrid Nilsson and Kat Valdez. And so basically they just sit down once a week and they talk about different subjects that are really relevant, especially for people my age and lifestyle and things like that. Internet kids, that kind of thing. A couple in particular that I listened to recently, one was about online dating, another one was about feminism. Their most recent one is called Introverts in an Extroverted World. I'll probably be listening to that one on my way home today because I definitely identify as an introvert. I definitely get energy from being alone, even though I can interact with others. Because introversion is not about whether you can or can't interact with others, it's about, does it drain you? So it'll be interesting to listen to their take, because it said in the description that they are both introverts, so that'll be interesting to listen to. But I just really like how casual this podcast is, and they're definitely, they're still getting a feel for everything. They have 6 episodes up right now, so it's really cool to see something be built from the ground up with podcast, and I love both of their YouTube channels. I'm more familiar with Ingrid's stuff. I really like her stuff. But I like both of them, and it's really cool. They have a very good dynamic going on in the podcast, and again, it's another lovely podcast. So this last one, I have to say, is probably my absolute favorite podcast at the moment. It is called Reply All, and it's basically just a podcast about anything and everything internet. I know it sounds perfect, especially for people like me. I call myself like a YouTube geek, internet geek, so I love stuff like this. The very first episode I listened to was, what was it called? I'm looking right now. Oh yeah. So the very first episode I listened to is called Decoders, and it's basically they're interviewing Rukmini Kalimachi, I probably botched that name, I'm sorry, and how they're always looking for new ways to eavesdrop on ISIS operatives through the internet, and through, they were talking about like apps on a phone that they chat with and code, and how they use a lot of emojis apparently, and just this whole process of basically counter-terrorism, which isn't as bad as it may sound. It's I mean, it's kind of, you have to listen to the podcast to see, but it's definitely, it's more cool than anything else. And then they've talked about like obscure websites on the internet and how those came to be, and kind of finding the origin story of them, helping people with their problems. Like they helped this one lady get her website back. And so it was funny just hearing that whole process of, because it was really interesting. You wouldn't think it would be like, oh, they called someone, they got the website, no big deal, but it was actually really funny to listen to, and just how the whole process went down. So things like that is the internet. The internet is a beautiful, magical, wonderful, weird, scary, but amazing place. And so it's just all these different stories and places and things that are going on that they talk about. And this is definitely a more established podcast, because their latest one, 1000 Brimes, is number 63. So they're much more established. They definitely have a solid voice that they have found with their podcast. And I love the dynamic between PJ Vogt, I don't know if that's how you say it, and Alex Goldman. It's just, they're really funny, going back and forth and kind of give each other a hard time, but also they can be really serious about other things. So it's a good balance, and it's about a topic I love, which is internet. Which hopefully, if you're here, you probably love internet too. So I would suggest Reply All, Ladies Who Lunch, and Modern Love, but that's just the beginning. I know there are a whole host of other amazing podcasts out there, and I want to get more into listening to it, not just during car rides, but also when I'm doing other things. So if you have some podcasts that you like, please leave the suggestions down below. Let me know what it's called and why you like it and why I should check it out. Convince me. No, I'm just kidding. I'll check out all your suggestions, and I'll let you know in the comments below what I think, replying back to your suggestions. And I might even make another video, be like, hey, here are the suggestions that I liked. And that cycle could go on forever, but at most it'll be one more video about podcast. I promise. It won't be a whole month of podcast. I mean, unless you want that, then I'm rambling at this point. I'm rambling. We can discuss it in the comments below. So that is all for now. Once again, I don't have the sword. It is in that car. But till next time, stay sharp, my friends.